Despite many, many grand uh, adventures, as well as many chances, the ways in which we've advanced ourselves as people as far as science. I can talk a blue streak about how we've got a bipedal robot, which understandably needs some help with standing up on its own 2 feet, that can be controlled with brain waves, which could create robotic helpers for people who cannot otherwise help themselves. Handicapped people, people who just can't get around like they used to, and things of that nature. There. Um, I can talk a blue streak about how we can wire electrodes into areas of the brain that are responsible for motor functions, and somebody who's been paralyzed by an accident for years, and show you how they can manipulate a robot arm to give them a cool, refreshing drink of water. You don't seem to care about that, or you're pessimistic about this. Oh, the robot can't stand up on its own. I've seen people with a PC and a Microsoft Kinect make bipedal robots that can stand on their own 2 feet and can walk without assistance. Granted, these are robots maybe yay high. Well, no, maybe yay high, but I mean, baby steps. But I submit to you, the pessimistic scientific viewers out here, scientists link brains of 2 rats. Let that one sink in for a moment. Scientists link the brains of 2 rats. Signals from one affect the other, says researchers. And this, I'm going to go through some of the more significant parts of this so that you can understand that this isn't just random chance. This isn't something to just look at. Granted, there needs to be some more peer review of this as well as some more further demonstration of this. But this could have fantastic results as well as some rather, let's say, ethical issues that might come along with this at the same time. But again, this is something that would be relegated to the realm of science fiction. I dare say by the end of this article, relegated to the realm of what is it? Word I'm trying to look for. Conspiracy theories. But this is science. This is becoming science fact. And don't give me that. Oh, this just sounds too good to be true. We've pulled images of what our mind's eye can see out of people's brains using an MRI. Now, it's not the clearest picture, but the fact that we can do that in today's day and age, the fact that we might be able to actually create actual lie detectors, because if you're relaying the truth to somebody, typically there's an area of the brain you're accessing, but with MRIs, you could see, because then you have to think of the lie, you have to think of the support for the lies, you have to think of the possible outcomes of which lie you're thinking about. You may even have multiple lies that you're thinking about. That could be a way more accurate measure of if somebody is lying than simply strapping them to a machine that says you're sweaty. Why are you sweaty? Well, gee, because if you misread my information, as often happens with those lie detectors, which are not scientifically based, just by and by, then, people can go to jail. People can lose their jobs. People can lose relationships that need not be lost based off of misreadings, misgivings, all sorts of things, because, you know, polygraphs are not actually scientifically based. They could tell you what a person's body is doing. It cannot tell you if a person is accurately telling the truth or lying, or whether they even believe they're telling the truth or lying, and can be so easily fooled. But I digress. That's a whole other topic here in general. But again, I mean, the study of the mind, the study of the brain, and how far we're taking things, honestly, I think is fascinating. Not just fascinating, the fact that I'm seeing this stuff in my lifetime, even if these are baby steps, blows my mind. It is, in the words of Wired, a rodent mind meld. A Duke neuroscientist planted electrodes in the brains of 2 rats and discovered that signals from one could control the actions of the other, reports the New York Times. In one experiment, the rats were trained to press a specific lever when seeing a red light in order to get a drink of water as a reward. I want you to sort of take a moment to sort of soak that in. The rat had to respond to a specific light and had to push a specific lever in order to get the water as the reward. If it were just, say, one lever, if it was maybe, say, just one light. No, this is the red light. So these rats have been conditioned to respond to the red light, and then they have to find the specific lever. So again, this tends to be a bit more of a control for just random chance that these things would, that this rat or these rats, as you'll find out through this article, just happen to keep getting it right. There's chance, and then there's a demonstrable phenomena that is happening. Again, though, I'm like I said, this needs further study, this needs further demonstration, but this sounds extremely promising. Excuse me. The first rat saw the light and pressed the correct lever. The second rat was not shown the light, again, to control for the issues there. Any cross-contamination of the experiment. Again, I'm not trying to say this experiment is watertight. I'm just trying to make people with maybe a less than scientific understanding of this understand that, again, the reason why this is newsworthy is because this wasn't just dumb luck. The second rat wasn't shown the light but pressed the correct lever anyways, most of the time after receiving the signals from the first rat's brain. What's more, the rats got their reward only if both rodents responded correctly. Researchers say the first rat apparently figured this out and started sending clearer signals to his pal, which boosted the success rate even more. Ultimately, Duke's Miguel Nicolius, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, hopes his work leads to an exoskeleton that can be controlled by a paralyzed person. So in other words, we could maybe even just eliminate the robot and wire in an exoskeleton that could be wired into the, to your motor skills, cortex of your brain there, and be able to actually control this robot as if it was just an extension of your own body. We've seen it done at least with an arm and a robot and a woman who was paralyzed. This could, imagine not needing hover-round chairs. Imagine, maybe having a spouse or somebody lift you up. The exoskeleton then snaps into place and you're good to go. And you can suddenly do all the things that your body simply cannot do because that connection is severed, but the connection is very strong with you in that exoskeleton. On this particular experiment, however, Reuters quotes an anonymous neuroscientist, a little leery about the precedent, fearful of a slippery slope worthy of a sci-fi blockbuster. He sees the possibility of, quote, battalions of animal soldiers, or even human soldiers, whose brains are remotely controlled by others. If this experiment is watertight, if this is what it appears to be, then there's nothing saying that that couldn't possibly happen. But could you imagine if we could suddenly create a way to be almost harmonious with nature on some level? What if we had receivers, animals had receivers, but obviously only when in maybe, within a foot of each other? You could then communicate to the animal that you are no threat, or make the animal go away from you. Could you imagine the animal fatality rate, which is already pretty darn low, but like with bear attacks, they're rather particularly brutal. But if the bear understood maybe on some level, or was made to understand that we are not their enemy. I mean, granted, even that could have chances for abuses within poaching and hunting and all sorts of things, and I'm not saying that there isn't that. I'm just saying, though, that there may be so many applications that could create a bigger, bolder, safer world for us. And what if, on some levels, if we scanned people's troubled people's brains, or no, yeah, no, let me not even go into that one. What about psychiatry? What with psychiatry? Ah, God dang it, psychiatry. What if we were able to cut off certain parts of the brain of somebody who has a compulsivity disorder, who has certain issues, and maybe have somebody who could be their conscience, that when they start to feel like, or maybe have some sort of residual impulse to do bad, somebody could then activate and prevent them from doing harm to others. I don't know. Just food for thought. I barely had enough time, excuse me, to truly digest just what this means, especially if it can be demonstrated far and beyond, so that people who are maybe leery, or maybe people who completely doubt that this is actually a thing that is happening, links down to the underbar, by the way, uh, that this could be something that has far-reaching capabilities, some of which I don't even think we could even think of at this point. But there's a line. I've talked about bioethics, but we've also got to talk about futuristic ethics as well, because let's face it, these are things that eventually are going to get incorporated. Some of them will have major benefits, some could have chances for catastrophic issues. And I'm sure the nutters will just say, I knew that this is probably funded by the Nazi Obama campaign, so that they'll force us to be disarmed and to march right through FEMA's Auschwitz Part 2. Because, that's a thing that is happening, at least according to Alex Jones, I'm sure. I would not be surprised if tomorrow Alex Jones doesn't make some talk show about this very topic and say, see, I've seen the documents. I knew this was going to happen. They're just waiting and biding their time. Yeah, and that next batch of vaccines that you all think are necessary, they're going to implant those electrodes into your brain, and then before you know it, you're going to be a member of the Obama Hitler Youth. Or so Alex Jones is prone to saying, because he's an anti-vaxxer, and you know how I feel about them.